Hello, this is the Mae B Mindful Podcast, and I am your host, Hannah Mae. I'm a mother of 6, conscious birth instructor and educator, spiritual growth facilitator, and certified hypnotist. This podcast is about inspiring hope, expanding awareness and consciousness in order to revolutionize the way we live and experience our lives. You can expect thought-provoking episodes each week spanning a range of topics, drawing from both my own journey of transformation and healing and working with others. I hope you find this podcast to be informative, refreshing, illuminating, and instrumental in your own soul's evolution and growth. Let's jump right in. Welcome back to the Mae B Mindful Podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Mae, and today's episode is on parenting, of course, and as it relates to reparenting the self. The two are synonymous. I can't really talk about one without talking about the other. They are at the very least incredibly interwoven and connected and part of the same fabric, and one just brings us back and back to the other. And so it calls us to do our own work. At least the invitation is always there in my experience. So really the theme of this is the work is mine. And the other theme of this is the need for radical self-care. Like, how in the world do you do that? It's a little confusing because you're like, okay, hold on a second, this business of parenting, I'm supposed to press into selflessness. It requires a good amount of selflessness. I'm supposed to die to self, essentially. And then I'm supposed to self-care. I'm supposed to, excuse me, let me, like, for the survival of everybody on board, let me put my own oxygen mask on first. Just give me a moment, everybody, okay? So that I can make sure we survive and make it, right? And I'll get oxygen too. There's a lot of stuff we don't understand on this journey. There's a lot of I don't knows, and that's okay. We're dealing with things on a multi-dimensional, spiritual, physical plane here. And things come up in us and we don't know why we're feeling them. And maybe we don't know why we're having a reaction that we're having, and we don't even like the reaction that we're having. And maybe we're not wanting to have that reaction anymore, yet we find ourselves still doing it anyway. So in that way, we're really called to break cycles. Some of them we are aware of, and some of them we are not aware of. However, I guarantee you, you're a parent, you stick around, you keep an open mind, you want to do a better job, which we all do, you're going to start to become aware of them. The clues are going to start popping up all over the place because those kids, beep, 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 like they got your number. They're going to press all your buttons. The shit is hard in that way. Forgive me for my bad language. I'm going to tidy it up right now. I hope your kids aren't listening. Okay, what did we talk about so far? I really believe that all parents are doing the best they can. I really, truly believe that with the tools that they have and with the level of consciousness and awareness that they have. And how we do is going to be in direct correlation and relation to that. And so the opportunity is there to grow and expand our consciousness and awareness constantly. That is going to require, guess what? Some attention. That means we're going to have to focus on ourselves a little bit. And then at the same time, bring this joy and create levity and not take it so seriously and recognize that it's impossible to do it perfectly. I have a good friend who has 7 children, and she's a veteran mother, and her kids are all adults now. And I remember I was telling her one day, I was like, I was trying to get them to like behave and do this and do that. And she said, "Oh, it's an impossible job." And it just kind of helped me realize, oh, of course it is. What a silly expectation to have on myself. On that subject, the work's always mine. We tend to think that we need to change our child, fix our child, make them different, when, in fact, most of the time, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Exactly. If they're throwing a grand mal tantrum, they know exactly what to do. Their body is processing or attempting to process and offload a buildup of emotion that they can't live with anymore. They're brilliant. Our reaction, however, is a different story, because most likely, if that's happening and we're feeling the need to shut it down, stop it, stifle it, change it, fix it, it's because I haven't learned how to process those feelings that are getting triggered in me that are coming up. And so this is the opportunity. So in this example, I cannot hold space for their feeling and emotion if I have not learned how to tolerate it in myself. And I can't tolerate it in myself until I have processed it. So this is calling me to attention here in order to heal and transform something so that it no longer has to be projected onto my child. It is, something. It is something, let me tell you. It's kind of a joke. Parenting is like sort of hilarious and sort of ridiculous, actually, when you look at it, because you're like, okay, you want me to move in with all these highly irrational, illogical little beings. They're so cute. Love them, but they're going to call me to a very high level of endurance. They're going to bring me to that. I had a mentor that called it the bone crushing tired state where you just feel like your bones are just going to explode into powder and you're just going to disintegrate and you're going to just be lying on your kitchen floor dead because you're so tired and you don't know how you're going to do it anymore. But like, be nice, have a nice day, be joyful. And then you're supposed to be the adult. Like you're supposed to keep things on track and stop the ship from crashing into the rocks and keep everybody on board and safe in your delirious state. And everything that they do in their irrational state, not everything, but a good part of it, depending on your bag of stuff that you're bringing to the table, is going to trigger the shit out of you. Sorry, I swore again. It's going to trigger you to the point where your nervous system might be completely flooded. And that's going to turn you into an irrational, tantruming, 3-year-old. But you're supposed to be the adult here. And then at the same time, it's like learning to see things through the child's eyes and learning to, in that way, become more childlike and recognize that maybe we don't got it all figured out. Maybe we need to gain some perspective. Maybe they're more emotionally, spiritually, energetically intelligent than we are in that moment. Maybe we are operating in a moment from our own unconsciousness, you know? And maybe it's calling us to look at our own conditioned beliefs and experiences that have been pressed into us that are causing us to have these impulsive responses. So there's a vast amount of opportunity here. And support is important, community is important, connection is important. And speaking of connection, as far as all the philosophies and theories and approaches and experts and wonderful advice out there, the ones that I really resonate with are the connection-based ones, because connection really is the antidote and really is the thing that is going to help realign your child with you. And so in order for you to connect with your child, you have to be able to do that within yourself so that you are grounded. And we all bring our own bag of stuff. And so because of that, this journey is going to be unique to you, to each individual. So I can't say, despite some of the wonderful approaches, I tend to discard, or not discard, but I tend to be pretty indifferent to the like strictly behavioral approaches because I don't believe it's actually addressing anything on the level that it needs to in order to even change the behavior. It's like if you cut a leaf off, it's just going to grow back. It's like there's a root of something, there's a need, there's an unmet need. And again, if I can meet that need for myself, I can support my child in meeting that need. I can meet that need for them. I can be that. I can be their connection and their lifeline. But I can only tolerate in them what I have learned to tolerate in myself. And when I learn how to do that, I'm going to have a very different reaction. As far as creativity in your approach, there's some incredible teachers and people that have made it their life's work to educate and inspire and support parents. Of all the wonderful teachers, people that I follow and have learned from, I still can't say that there's one person that I 100% align with on every single thing, because I really am going to have to find my own way and learn how to trust my inner guidance system. But I highly support outsourcing here because we do need support. This is like not a small thing. I kind of look at it as the way that I cook. Like if I want to cook a new recipe, I'm going to look up, I don't look up just one, I look up two, sometimes three, depending on what I find. And I kind of pick and choose intuitively based on if I like that ingredient, if I don't like that, my kids aren't going to like that. That's not going to work. That's too spicy. That's too difficult. I'm going to, pick and choose what's going to yield, I think, the best result. And I'm going to troubleshoot it. And hopefully I'm going to end up with my own world's best lasagna. Although you can't really go wrong with lasagna no matter what, because it's like pasta, cheese, and meat. But you get what I'm saying? And eventually I'm going to toss the recipe and I'm going to just intuitively know how to make this because it's built in and I know what works. I know what we like. I know what works. If it doesn't work, if everybody hated it, I'd have to change it. Why would I keep making something that doesn't work? It's the same thing with our approaches and our tactics. And sometimes we beat our head into the wall and we keep running into the same wall over and over again. And it's like, okay, let's just like slow it down. Let's just reassess here. Are we doing something unconsciously because of our own beliefs and experiences, or what somebody else has said is a good idea, even though it's not working? There's a lot of approaches out there. There's a lot of well-meaning friends that are going to offer advice, and like they really believed it. And that doctor or that psychologist, he had a best-selling book. It doesn't mean it's an awakened approach. It doesn't mean it's going to be in alignment for your family and yourself and your values. And it doesn't mean it's going to benefit your relationship and connection with your child. And so it's really important to start to trust and rely upon our inner guidance system in this process and to take a close look at what are we operating from? What unconscious beliefs do we need to wake up to? What's mine? Is that my belief? Do I even believe it? Or am I just acting impulsively or compulsively on autopilot? At the end of the day, other people's judgments, whether it's family members, friends, is really irrelevant. It's very fleeting and it's not going to last long. But your relationship with your child and your own well-being that is going to last a lot longer. So as far as learning to operate from any formula, and I like formulas, I like finding something that works. As a baseline, I can always check in if I'm at an I don't know. And there's a lot of I don't knows on this journey with what's coming up with me or my kids or how to respond to something appropriately. I can ask myself, is this coming from a place of love? And there's some incredible models to look at with this based on your own belief system and leanings. But what is love? Like, what actually is love, right? What is loving? Is it loving to say yes? Is it loving to say no in that moment? What is the need? Where do I need to show up? Whose need do I need to meet? And weighing that out and prioritizing sometimes and getting creative. And so, is it loving to discard myself and in the name of unnecessary parental martyrdom if it costs the whole and then I don't show up the way that I'd like to, or as a very nice person? Is that loving? Is that loving to anybody? Who does that benefit and what does that teach? We tend to forego one in the name of the other and use it as an excuse and stay avoidant in not addressing our stuff. But isn't one required in order to do the other well? So if we're gonna show up in the name of love, then we need to consider ourselves here as an equal and part of the human race, and also in the profound responsibility that we have, and consider our needs as well as a parent. And anytime I hear myself saying, I should, I have to, I need to, that's worth examining. Where's that coming from? Isn't that just a story? Possibly. Do we want our children to learn how to self-regulate? Most likely. How do I model that? Do I try and hold it together and ignore the need, or do I ask for help? They're watching. They're watching and they're learning. They're watching everything. Can I demonstrate that I'm a human, that I'm not perfect? Can I allow myself grace? I can tell you my kids have seen me stop in the middle of chaos and put my hand over my heart and close my eyes and take 3 deep breaths and get still. I'm going to tell you, this gets their attention. They stop and they look at me and I can say, hi, I'm just taking a minute. I'm really needing a minute. They've also seen me lose my shit and fall apart, by the way. and they know that I'm human and I don't try and be perfect anymore. For a long time I did, and it didn't serve me and it didn't serve them because they see through the BS. And if I hold myself to that standard and try and model that, then what are they taking away from that? So as I learn, they learn. And like, which one would you prefer? Which one benefits me? Which one benefits the whole? Obviously, if I lose it, which I might sometimes, that's a signal to me that I need to do something differently. So can I let myself off the hook and sacrifice the value of a healthy meal, for example, and let my kids order whatever they want and allow for flexibility and a lack of rigidity around this value that is really important to me, that I generally try and uphold if my mental and emotional health needs are speaking louder in that moment? I can tell you they appreciate it. I mean, they like fast food. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not going to eat it. But every now and again, I need to soften. Do I ask for help? I have 6 kids. If I tried to stay as self-sufficient as I did in the beginning, I would have like worked my way into the grave, because it's too much for one person to do. And so I asked them, I say, come work with me. Do I ask for help? This was a tough one for me. It took me 3 kids and then some, 3 kids in diapers and then some, 3 kids in diapers with my husband on the road for a good part of the year for me to like be willing to surrender and ask for some help. And I just had no choice but to. That was just on my own personal journey. That was just part of my story. I think logically speaking, we can all agree that it is for the benefit of everyone to self-care and make that a priority and make time for that. And a lot of times we use the excuse that we don't have time, but of course, there is no time. Like, that's not the issue. It's, are we willing, I think. And where there's a will, there's a way. And so if I'm not doing it, that might mean that I'm avoiding it. And that could be the real issue. And so therefore, support is needed. We're not supposed to do this alone. This is like deep work. It's legit. Dr. Becky has this incredible thing where you can like sign up and she'll like send you text messages like randomly and she'll be like, hey, you're not alone. I mean, I just think that's brilliant for us to know in the moment that we're not alone, because parenting can sometimes feel very isolating. So what is accessible? Community, like-minded parents. Maybe you need to seek additional help for ourselves in our own work to support ourselves. Patty Whiffler of Hand in Hand Parenting has this incredible tool in her formula, and it's called listening time, and it's designed for the parents. So it's designed to create space. You set up a time and it's free. You can set up a time with a coach, but you can also do it with another parent if you're on the same page, and allow space for each other to just have what you have and be heard, which ironically is the very thing that we're needing to do for our children. Ultimately, our children are looking to co-regulate. And as we seek to do this, since they generally don't say, Mommy, I need to co-regulate, they fall apart and it looks like some sort of explosion, or they have some other manifestation that's disturbing to us. So tantrums, for example, which is just a classic example, but of course it can look a variety of different ways. It could be sass, rudeness, attitude, fighting with siblings, not listening, defiance. Depending on how old they are, that could look a variety of ways and manifest differently. They could be getting into trouble at school. They could be finding ways of to disassociate from their own feelings as they get older. And it's like, how do I show up? Do I show up in a controlling way? Do I show up in a fearful way? Or am I showing up in a way, in an inquisitive and curious way, right? What is the need? And this is the clue. What's coming up for me? If I need to control and change it, that's a manifestation of what's being affected in me. If I can't tolerate something, typically, if crying or whining or a tantrum is causing you to want to shut that down, then the opposite of that would be softening and entering a hard space. And wow, so much more can be positively accomplished here with minimal fallout. So they don't have to carry or internalize my woundedness that I'm projecting onto them. They are going to walk away with something from that interaction. So what are we conditioning? Are we conditioning and building in and sending the message that it's okay to feel, that no matter what your feelings are, I love you, I accept you, I'm here for you? Or do we have to repress those things because they're still unresolved in us? And so again, it just calls us to ourself again and again and again. And it really is an incredible design. It really is as confusing as all get out as it is sometimes. And so the benefit of self-care, by the way, is that you end up feeling cared for. The benefit of being able to show yourself love, kindness, compassion, patience, tolerance, understanding, allow grace is that you feel those things, right? If those weren't given to you in the way that you needed, it's like one of my love languages, my main love language is words of affirmation. So if I can speak those things to myself, it might feel a little stupid sometimes, like saying nice things to yourself. I try and just like do it when no one's around. I'm going to receive the benefits of hearing those words because I have spoken those words over me. There's this Rumi quote that's right behind me. I'm going to turn around to read it so I don't mess it up. And it says, raise your voice. No, no, no. Don't raise your voice. That's not what it says. It says, raise your words, not voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. And this applies. And laughter is just as important as allowing for tears. There's a good amount of laughter that's needed, play, creativity that we can interject. There have been times where I have not felt the joy, and I have noticed that that was the need. And so I was able to get quiet and just pray and just ask for joy. And then in the opening, of that, in the recognition and the attention that I gave to it and the space that opened up for that to come in, joy was found and cultivated. And it felt like to me at that time a flippin' miracle. I'm not kidding, because sometimes it can get intense and tough and we can make heavy going of things. And so interjecting play and laughter and needing support for that too is also pretty important, right? Because I had this other memory, and this happened many times, but for some reason it really stood out to me and illustrated this point. My mom was with me, and it was like the symphony and orchestra of tears and crying around me. It was like multiple of my children, they were all crying at once. Nobody could be satisfied, and I literally felt like the world was gonna end, okay? I was like, "I can't fix this. I can't change this." It was all too much for my little nervous system to handle. I thought my head was gonna explode. And in that moment, my mom, she burst into laughter. And I like it jolted me and it took me out of the situation from being so immersed and subjective in it, and it allowed me to become objective and laugh with her. And I was so grateful for that. And I just was like, "Oh, yeah, this is like flipping ridiculous." Like they're just kids being kids. So again, the need to cultivate self-compassion, kindness, these things are critical. Allowing ourselves grace, getting what we need to support ourselves, having understanding with ourselves in this process, letting ourselves off the hook, not holding ourselves to these like ridiculous and unmeetable standards. Can't do it perfectly. It is an impossible job. All we can do is like show up. And there's a good amount of humility in that. And I find in the humility of that, that's where I become open and receptive to accepting help, any kind of help, spiritual help. That's an important one. On the topic of self-care, it is really important for me to build into my day time to ground. I have a meditation and prayer practice. I have a self-hypnosis practice. And my kids have learned to have a little reverence for that. It took a minute. It used to be like, you know, is it an emergency? I'm like, "No, no, no, no. Let me ask you this. Has anyone lost an appendage? Is anyone dying? Is anyone bleeding profusely? If the answer is no, can it please wait?" And holding the line on that and sort of demanding some respect around it, but like modeling that. Hopefully that's a tool that they're gonna, like, at some point in their life when when life gets lifey for them and they go out into the world and they're gonna see maybe that they need that too for themselves, that they'll go, "Okay, oh, I know how to do that. I saw my mom do that." I wake my ass up before everybody now because it's just easier to do in the morning before they're awake. And so that's part of my self-care. Just like, spitballing ideas here. Uh, this is a pretty like big topic. Obviously, not everything can be covered. It's just a pillar of one of these, these conversations that we're going to have. So I look forward to more to come. Please feel free to leave me thoughts, questions, concerns, reviews. Until next time, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to the Mae B Mindful Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. For more information, resources, and exclusive content, visit our website at maybemindful.com or go ahead and follow us over on Instagram at Mae B Mindful. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please give me a follow, screenshot the episode, and go ahead and tag me until next week when I bring you another thought-provoking and inspiring topic. Until then,